Thank you so much for all the support you gave me, guys.
Okay.
Today, I got promoted.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Welcome to LMDtv. This week on Talking Business, Anushan Selvarajah speaks with the CEO of Mars Holdings, Suren Fernando.
Welcome to LMDtv, Suren. Good to have you with us. First and foremost, Happy New Year.
Likewise.
With all things considered, Suren, how was 2020 for the apparel sector?
When we look at 2020, since the COVID-19 outbreak began in China at the end of 2019, its dramatic and swift impact had been felt across the global apparel and textile sector, not only in Sri Lanka, around the world. Lockdown measures saw stores closing, discretionary spending fall, and major disruptions to supply chain. Large parts of the global population literally had to get used to working from home overnight, and that restricted mobility and reduced reasons for spending, sometimes even no spending at all in apparel, which really plummeted the retail sales. Looking at Sri Lanka, COVID-19 affected both the supply chain side of it as well as our export orders. Logistic chains were disrupted and our shipments of finished goods impeded as movements of goods and people were restricted between locations. As things began to sort of reach some level of stability, we saw the demand side of the business. On the marketplace also, we saw a certain level of stability. Of course, much lower than what we saw before COVID. But we also saw consumers shifting towards omni-channel purchases. Digital platforms really started to take off, and this was very encouraging. However, when the second wave of the pandemic hit Sri Lanka, as a manufacturing organization, the challenges that we faced and we continue to face now is more on the supply side. Really having a robust and a reliable system where the organization is able to scale up and scale down and ensuring business continuity so that we are able to deliver on our promises to our customers. Also, following the second outbreak, the apparel industry also had to face a certain level of stigmatization and even discrimination against the workers in the factory, especially at the shop floor level, despite the significant contribution that they make to the sector and also to the economy of the country, which also resulted in painting a poor picture for the industry. And hopefully this will come to pass as soon.
What were the measures that needed to be brought in to ensure the health and safety of the workers, and also so that they could keep on working and bringing that vital for it?
The most critical factor for us in this whole equation was to ensure the health and safety of our people. And as you know, Anushan, we are still in the middle of the second wave. And given our industry is labor intensive and relies on large groups of people physically, coming together to work, it was paramount to ensure that adequate health and safety protocols are in place. And as we started bringing in production staff back, even after the first wave and the second wave, we ensured that it was always a gradual ramp up with maybe 15 to 20% of our employees initially coming to site, adhering to very strict health and safety protocols. For example, wearing the mask, temperature checks, 2-3 times a day while they have their meals and so on. Continuous sanitization procedures, zoning out where you create almost mini factory within factory so that in the event there are a few cases, we can isolate that to that particular group to minimize the risk of contamination, as well as very restricted interactions between external parties and team members belonging to different shifts, where some of those immediate measures that we took, as a company. All efforts were coordinated with the local health authorities and who worked very, very closely with our factory management team to ensure the health and safety of every single employee. And we have received a lot of support from the Ministry of Health and also the local health authorities to continue business operations with minimum disruption.
Suren, in a situation such as this, for a company like yours, a large company with a large workforce, how do you maintain motivation levels to keep working?
Yeah, Anushan, it's always a fine balance between what's best for the organization, the company and the industry, but also equally or more importantly is protecting and keeping our employees, safe and secure as well. So how do you keep them really motivated to continue to work and to deliver on the commitments that we have made to our customers? So these are several stakeholders that you have to keep sort of in balance. And a major multifaceted concern that emerged for us was to keep the team members at our factories really motivated and to retain them when the world was crashing around them, especially amidst the social stigma, like I mentioned earlier, and the discrimination that took place with the second wave. And I believe I speak for everyone in the industry when I say this. Communication becomes absolutely critical. Open, honest, regular communication so that the employees know exactly what's going on and the measures that we are taking as an organization, and that is always a balance. We have to continue our business, but that does not come at the compromise of your health or your safety, and really ensuring that the employees build that trust in the management and the organization. And I think really going out there and showing that we genuinely care for our people. It's not about neglecting their lives, but we want to protect their lives and their livelihoods. And it's a fine balance. But I think as long as you have very open, honest, transparent communication, and we have trust with your employees, from top to bottom, I think that makes the job that much easier. And hence we've been able to successfully navigate through some of the challenges that we've had even in our own factories. Has
the industry united and to weather the storm as one?
I think we did. JAF has played a very, very critical role in making sure that they become that strong and one voice, who speaks on behalf of the industry. And through JAF, we've been able to work very closely with the health authorities. The BO and the EDB has always been on our side and has been extremely supportive. And I think we've been able to overcome a lot of challenges, especially that we had during the first wave and even in the second wave, to really work together as an industry to really come out of this situation together. Having an organization like JAF has really helped to bring everyone together, in that industry, and to really sort of, push ourselves together as one voice.
Even before the pandemic, the apparel sector was going through a tough period in terms of sourcing a workforce. Is the situation still the same?
I would say the situation has not changed that much. But for us, Anushan, when you look at ourselves, for us, our focus has more been not on really sort of attraction, but more on retention. And all the strategies that we have put in place has been focusing more on retention, because if you are able to retain your employees, then attraction becomes less of a challenge. So we use various strategies. For example, even looking at some basic stuff like pay scales or the benefits, but also going beyond that, skills development, career progression, to ensure that they build that connection with the company and they don't look at, coming to work for 2-3 years and then moving on to do something else. So I think the retention strategies become that much more important. But having said that, like I mentioned earlier, this current challenge that we're facing is this whole social stigma and discrimination against, people who are working in the industry, especially at that shop floor level, and hoping that it will come to pass soon. And also, I think the general message is not to forget that this could happen to anyone in any industry or in the greater society for that matter. So I hope that we will be able to overcome that challenge soon. But beyond that, Anushan, our focus has mostly been on really retaining the people whom we have and sending a very positive message through that to the society as well, so that they in turn are able to attract their colleagues and their peers and their family members to come and join the organization.
We'll go in for a short break now. Welcome back to the show as we continue our discussion with Suren Fernando. Let's talk about alternative markets. What are our options going forward?
Yeah, if you look at the Sri Lankan apparel exports, almost 40% of our apparel exports go to the US. US is our largest market, and Europe being the second largest market. And I think as a country, it's important to continuously look for access to new markets as well, to grow and then diversify and then manage our market risk much better. And I think even at a national level, the country is exploring opportunities to open to trade dialogues with existing and even emerging markets. I think Mr. Tuli Kore, the Secretary of the JAF, made a statement recently in saying that the UK and Japan and US are currently looking at their trade agreements and renegotiating their trade agreements, and we are open to explore such opportunities given the current circumstances. And I think that's quite encouraging. Over-dependence on the Western markets has left Sri Lanka somewhat vulnerable, as we saw, post or during COVID. Therefore, exploring opportunities within fast-growing markets, China, India, Brazil can be a game changer for the industry. There are some challenges in working with these countries due to various sort of protectionism that exists. But I think we can overcome some of this, and they're very attractive markets in terms of size and scale.
The rupee has come under pressure in recent times. Now, what is your take on its impact on the industry and the country as a whole? How can this be managed?
Yeah, I think everyone's sort of the first impression is that when the rupee depreciates, it sort of benefits the exporters. But my belief and my understanding is that it does benefit, but it's a very short-term gain because long-term then your costs would go up, inflation would creep up, and then it kind of levels out. I think for us, what is most important is stability of the currency, so that we are able to really plan ahead and then manage our business a lot better. So I hope the government will look at various measures of really stabilizing the currency, which I think is the most important factor at this point in time.
Now, you mentioned the supply chain disruptions. Now, it's not just about us supplying products to be sent out, but it's also that we have to bring in raw materials to manufacture most of our products because we are not self-reliant. What are the alternatives that are there, Suren? Are there alternatives? Can we be less reliant on other nations for our raw materials?
Yeah, if you look at over the past few years, supply chains have been primarily organized and sort of optimized for cost and duty benefits. And I think COVID-19 was a wake-up call for everyone to realize how fragmented these supply chains have become, and the importance of resilience and agility to navigate through these challenges, post and during the pandemic. So therefore, when you look at our customers, almost every customer, places verticality as one of their, key priorities. Verticality in sourcing has become a priority for most of our customers now. But having said that, most industries, including apparel, still rely a lot on the China and East Asian sort of, routes for sourcing. And as COVID-19 is making the apparel industry reprioritize, resilience and agility over sometimes even cost, there is an opportunity for Sri Lanka to make inroads into and bring in some FDIs and increase the raw material production and value addition, both locally and even in the region. And yes, with the right investments and strategic decisions at a national level, I think it's viable to think that we can become less reliant on other countries for raw material supplies, although it may take a few years for the industry to reap the return on such investments. But I think long term, that's the kind of the right the strategy that we should pursue.
As a final question, then, Suren, what is your outlook for the apparel sector in 2021?
The impact of COVID-19 on the global fashion and apparel industry and the supply chains connected is probably like to wane on the sector till about 2022. I think 2021 becomes a very important year where the crisis may intensify key consumer trends that we have seen emerging. For example, the acceleration of online sales, consumers buying more on digital platforms, the growth in e-commerce that we have seen, where we have seen the growth that e-commerce has achieved. What we have achieved over the last 6 years has been achieved in the last 8 months of 2020. So that just shows the rate of acceleration in e-commerce and digital or other online sales. And I think the latest global fashion industry projections show that a 15 to 30% decline in sales compared to the 2019 base levels. And I think it might take about 2 years for us to recover to those 2019 levels, from where we are today. Therefore, 2021 will probably act as a bridge between the pre-pandemic levels, pre-pandemic reality, and the potentially protracted recovery period for the global fashion industry in that next normal that will come. The pace of recovery will vary across product categories. Some may do better than others, and we have seen that very clearly. I think come this year, all of us globally, regardless of which industry we are in, will have to live with COVID and operate in that COVID environment. At least a good part of 2021 also we'll have to go through it. Strategically, there will be an imperative in 2021 to manage commercial opportunities actively and to be acute in picking those winning segments. I think that's going to be critical. So I think 2021 will be a year for very deep partnerships with our customers and our suppliers across the industry and that value chain that brings greater agility and on the supply chain side as well as on the manufacturing side as well, and even in the front end. I think speaking of Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan apparel manufacturers must focus on really increasingly looking at verticality, which we spoke about earlier in our sourcing strategies, and how to adjust conventional manufacturing models to cater to that rapid growth, like catering to that customer to serve in that e-commerce platform. How can we add more value to our customers? It could be through product, it could be through service. And I think beyond this year, it's going to take resilience at a different level. It's going to be absolutely important, and cooperation between those people who are involved in the value chain to really overcome this crisis. So therefore, partnership becomes absolutely important. We need to have all stakeholders really working together to reset the industry, to help the Sri Lankan economy to really bounce back strongly. Nevertheless, as I mentioned before, resilience has always been a cornerstone for the apparel industry in Sri Lanka. We have faced many challenges: war, communal riots, recessions, terrorist attacks, and we have been able to thrive and survive and thrive. So while what we're going through is inevitable at the moment, it's not going to take the industry off track. That's my firm belief. We will keep going, and I'm confident that the industry post all of this will emerge stronger and better.
Well, let's hope that the industry and the country as a whole actually comes together and works to move forward. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, Suren. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, Anushan. Likewise, and all the best.
After a short break, Ashwini Vethakan will bring you an update on the latest LMD-Nielsen Business Confidence Index. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Ashwini Vethakan. Following a grueling 9 months for business in general and tourism in particular, the authorities have finally announced that Sri Lanka would resume selected international flights, with a blueprint also being drawn up to revive the hard-hit tourism industry. On the global front, updates on the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines in a number of countries has offered hope to those looking forward to a semblance of normalcy in the new year. Yet, skepticism seems to have reigned supreme as 2020 drew to a close with the results of the latest LMD-Nielsen Business Confidence Index survey, which was conducted in the first 7 days of December, reflecting a dismal state of affairs. The BCI recorded a further decline, falling by 8 basis points from the previous month to 83 in December. This also represents the lowest point in the index for the whole of 2020. Nielsen's Director of Consumer Insights, Therika Miyanadenia, comments, as the country continues to grapple with the COVID-19 crisis and struggles to ensure that there's continuity in business operations as well as the day-to-day lives of people, the hope of an end of the pandemic is beginning to look like a far-fetched dream. The end of the year was very bleak with no hope of recovery, and 2020 will go down in history as the year that never was, she adds. The most pressing issue for businesses in Sri Lanka is the impact of the coronavirus, with high taxes and bribery and corruption being next in line. Meanwhile, the spread of the virus is also the most pressing issue from a national perspective. Apprehension over the economy too appears to have grown, and there seems to be growing concerns over bribery and corruption. As 2020 came to a close, businesses and the public were left counting the cost of the pandemic. Miyanadenia maintains that everyone has had to adapt, be innovative, and put into place measures hitherto unknown so as to survive. Some businesses were compelled to resort to drastic measures that have had a ripple effect on their employees. The direction of the BCI and CCI will be dependent on what comes next and if the situation continues to be the same vis-a-vis COVID-19. On the positive side, a world that is swiftly moving towards immunizing people at risk and then others offer a glimmer of hope. And as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, the timing of implementing a vaccination program may dictate whether the index moves up or down in the near future. In terms of expectations for the Sri Lankan economy, the majority of respondents of 44% compared to 29% in November to the latest BCI survey say conditions are likely to remain the same in the coming 12 months, whereas 37% contend that the economy will worsen. This means only 19% of corporate executives feel the economy will improve in the 12 months ahead, which reflects a further decline from the 23% who said so in the previous month. Positive sentiment regarding both long and short-term business prospects has declined. Whereas in November, 58% of those polled anticipated sales volumes to improve in the ensuing 12 months, only 47% are as optimistic when it comes to the latest survey results. Nearly 4 in 10 respondents are of the view that biz prospects would remain unchanged, while 14% believe that sales volumes will diminish in the 12 months ahead. As for the nearer term, the majority 62% view is that business prospects will stay the same over the next 3 months. What's more, 88%, up from the 67% in the previous month of corporate executives, reveal that business has deteriorated this year compared to the last. Turning to the investment climate in the country, only 7% of respondents describe conditions as being favorable. Slightly over half the survey sample say that it is not a good time to invest, and another 40% refer to the prevailing investment climate as being fair. Where employment is concerned, the share of corporates planning to increase their workforce in the coming 6 months has increased to 22% compared to 15% in November. As in previous months, the majority 72% say they will maintain staff numbers, while only 6% versus the 12% in the prior month hint that retrenchments could be on the cards. That's all we have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.